since we got everyone in, if you guys don't mind, it is noon. If you guys don't mind, if you have cameras, please turn those on so we can interact with you today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So it is noon. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So my name is Jerry Sturm. I'm the Healthcare Facilities Manager at Nebraska-NM Current Emerging Professionals Program, or EPP, President. Before we jump into our event, I'll introduce Tiffany here in a little bit. Just wanted to take a brief minute to talk about how you can be a part of member of the EPP if you're not already a member, or you can take this information back and share with others out there who may want to join as well. So by joining EPP, you will get notifications on future presentations, speakers, events, and whatnot. You also receive a monthly newsletter to keep you up to date with all those types of activities, in addition to any other EPP updates. You'll have opportunities to volunteer out in the community and attend other events as well. So if you wanted to join, you can check out our website, unmc.edu/EPP. You can email the leadership team at epp@nebraska.com or nebraskamedicine.com, or follow our Now channel, and please do join.
I'm gonna go to the pharmacy and then I'll walk backwards.
And if you guys are not speaking, please make sure your mics are muted. I'll try to manage that here today. I just also want to mention that EPP is one of our employees resource groups that we have here at UNMC and Nebraska Medicine. So I invite anyone and everyone who has any interest to join our group. So thank you. And now I will talk about Tiffany a little bit, and then I'll let her get to introduce herself. So Tiffany is going to be doing our event today. She's a dedicated retirement counselor at Nebraska Medicine. She holds individual consultation meetings, webinars, and on-site education sessions to encourage, educate, and motivate plan participants or colleagues to guide them on their path to a secure retirement. Experience in defined contribution and defined benefit plans, and is committed to the education and counseling of plan participants to help them reach their financial wellness goals. Her professionalism and energetic personality builds rapport with a wide variety of participants with diverse financial backgrounds. Tiffany joined Prudential in October 2009, and she has 13 years of experience in the retirement and investment industry and 18 years in the banking and finance field. So Tiffany, I'll hand it over to you. Let me stop sharing my screen. There you go, all yours.
All right, so I will share mine here. So like I said, give me 1 second to fumble here. All right, so we'll start from the beginning. All right, can everybody see my screen, or at least somebody?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. So as Jerry said, my name is Tiffany Sturm, and thank you all for having me. It's an honor to help you all kind of talk about retirement and help take control of your finances. And so one of the things we wanted to do just to, number one, I mean, we want to make sure you all know who I am as the resource for your retirement plan at Nebraska Medicine. And if you're not participating in it yet, you should be, and reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to, get you the resources to get that enrolled. And at the end of the presentation today, we'll also kind of go through some easy steps for you to get enrolled. And so a few housekeeping items, as Jerry mentioned, if you could all just make sure that your phones are on mute. If you want to be on camera, that's awesome, because then that way I can feel like I'm interacting with people in the old days, of 2020 when we were on site, which I haven't been. But if you don't want to, that's fine too. And then that way it doesn't seem like I'm just staring at a little, what color is this? White dot. So I'll get started. And I do have a lot of experience in this. I've been with Prudential for, as Jerry said, 13 years. And prior to that, I was with a company called Great West. So actually been doing the retirement plan thing for around 15 years now. And as far as Nebraska Medicine, you all are my only client, and I've been with you just now 3 years. So it's been so fun getting to know all of you, and I see some really familiar faces and names on the screen here. And after this presentation, if there's anything I can help assist you with one-on-one, I'd be more than happy to do so. I live in Elkhorn. I'm local. I'm just coming to you live from my basement here. I have my husband who works from home as well, so we fight over offices. I've got 3 children. They're all at school. One who's been suffering with some separation anxiety. So my head's a little foggy today, but he did great the first half of the year. And for some reason, something just is not going well. But at the same time, we'll fix that and we're going to help you take control of your finances. So let's get started. At the end, we'll do a Q&A session. So feel free to place things in the chat as you feel necessary. And Jerry or Jenny, if somebody can kind of help me monitor that, if there's something that I miss, that'd be great. And then at the end too, if someone could provide me with a list of all the attendees, then I will send you all a survey link. And then that way you've got my contact information as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so nothing in the chat here. All right, so we're going to talk about building a budget and taking care of your finances. And if you've ever thought about taking care of finances and building a budget and just feeling that you have no idea where you should start, you're not alone. So a survey said that nearly 8 of 10 American workers live paycheck to paycheck, and that's from Career Builder. And 75% of those people say they are in debt. So what I want you to do right now is just kind of close your eyes and think about yourself and how you are feeling about your budget and your finances these days. And if you've ever had a budget or created a budget, if you could just put that in the chat. And if you wanted to be more private, you can certainly message me privately, I believe. So go ahead and do that. Just take a minute to think about where you feel about where you are with your finances. Do you feel like you're struggling? And then if you wouldn't mind just putting in the chat if you've ever had a budget or felt like you needed to have a budget. Okay, lots of people are using budgets. That's awesome. Some people don't have formal budgets. Some people feel like they need one. Okay, good. So this will be good. For some of you, it might be a refresher. And too, if anybody feels, I was just going to say, if anybody feels like they have a budget app that they are really, really passionate about, like somebody said, the Every Dollar app, put those in there, because this is a time for you all to share with each other. It's not just me talking to you in the screen and telling you what Prudential and myself thinks you need to do. This is your time to share with others too. So that's awesome. Had a budget but got away from using it. Need a formal budget to keep things and finances in check. Need a budget I can stick to. Mint app, that's another one, yes. Some people feel they're comfortable, but maybe need to do more. So this is just like how you feel about anything, right? So building a budget financially is a lot like having, like a workout plan, right? You have to stick to it. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes some time, and it's not going to just magically make things all improved and all better. You do have to stick to it. So you're not alone. I mean, 8 of 10 American workers, just like it says, live paycheck to paycheck. 75% are in debt. 10% of those people make $100,000 or more, and they still feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. And that's a pretty good salary, right? So some people feel like they're in debt because they can't pay just basic needs. Maybe it's that their salary is too low, or they've got too many obligations and they can't make ends meet. But, we have to think about it too. Like, debt can be a result of also just poor financial decisions. Maybe it has nothing to do with you not being able to pay your basic needs and wants. Perhaps it's simply that you've made some poor financial decisions. But remember that you are in control, right? So small steps today can help you live that better financial future. Something got you into this bad financial debt situation, perhaps. There are good decisions that can help you get out of that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so we've talked about making a budget, and a lot of you have said that you have one, but maybe it's not formalized, or you need to stick to it a little bit more. So what a budget's going to help you do is track your spending. It'll help you manage or eliminate your debt, curb those impulse purchases, and then project your retirement expenses. So this is going to help you live, more day to day with longer term goals in mind, such as retirement, right? So just like a workout plan, as we mentioned, a budget isn't a one-time thing, and it's not something that you can necessarily do alone. So if you are trying to create a budget, this is something that you need to consult with your significant other, or perhaps it's if you're married, you need to evaluate that budget together for it to actually be successful, because you're going to want to think about the specific goals that you're searching for. And then also dollar amounts that you're trying to attain. Maybe it's a specific dollar amount you're trying to obtain for retirement or a down payment on a home, or you're trying to fulfill your emergency savings. If I'm working on that goal by myself, my spouse may have something totally different in mind. And I will be honest, I know my spouse and I have totally different ideas about where we want to be with our financial goals with different things. He would save until, all in time. And then I like to buy things. I like to go on vacations. So we have to find a happy medium. We have to do that together. So you should evaluate the budget together for it to be a success. And that is very critical to yourself when you're building a budget. All right. So the first thing that we have to do is figure out our income. And this is the money in and then the money that's coming out, right? So in addition to your gross paycheck, what I want you to do is think about those additional items that maybe are coming in and write them down. Maybe it is that you have child support that you are receiving or alimony that you're receiving. And on the flip side, maybe that's money that's also going out. Maybe you have really thoughtful parents or grandparents who are able to gift you money once a year. That's income that's coming in. Maybe you've got investment properties, or perhaps you've got tax refunds that you count on. Maybe it's when you're able to do PTO sellback, if you guys are still able to do that in the next year, maybe you consider that your income. Maybe you're getting disability, or maybe it's just some extra income that you're receiving. Maybe you've got like a side gig coaching, or perhaps it's, doing some type of training, or maybe you're selling some type of market business on the side. That's all income that you want to consider into your money in. And then the next thing you have to subtract is any of your deductions that perhaps are coming out, such as HSA, insurance, taxes, health benefits, retirement. And on the flip side, like I said, maybe you're on the side paying student loans, child support, alimony. And then that's going to be your net income, right? And if you look at your pay stub, it's pretty easy just to find your net income. But the downside is it's not probably looking at maybe those extra sources of income that are coming into the plan, okay, or into your income sources. So how can you track your spending? Well, we've gotten some great ideas from your colleagues. The Mint app, the Every Dollar. I remember one gentleman that I had in a previous webinar had it was called BYAB, Build Yourself a Budget, I think. There's also people use Quicken. We've got our free online tool, or our budgeting tool. You could also just get a piece of paper, which I would be happy to send to you, that tracks all of this. Some people want to just see it, right in front of them. You could use an Excel spreadsheet. The other thing you could do, and this is something that I suggest for people that are really, really trying to get a grasp on what they're spending, is collect all your receipts for 1 week and then see what you're spending. Now, that might not be so easy in this world where it's, very tempting just to buy things online. Maybe you're getting an email receipt instead of a printed receipt, but perhaps it's something where you take a screenshot of anything you buy, and then maybe you table it onto a piece of paper and then put that into a shoebox. That way you can track your spending and really see where your money is going throughout the course of a week. After you've done that, what you're going to want to do is determine your expenses, and you're going to want to look at what's your fixed needs versus your variable needs versus your wants. And you're going to want to categorize them. Fixed needs are those things that are constant. They're not going to change. Your mortgage is one of them. Car payments are another. Sometimes mortgage payments do change. I mean, it depends on taxes, but mostly that stays pretty stable. And after you've determined this, it's going to be clear where you can save. Those variable needs are going to be things like gas and maybe clothing, depending on what you need for work, if you need new scrubs and things like that. Food, I mean, that can vary. Utilities, we know here in Nebraska that they definitely are going to vary. My summer bill is definitely much higher depending on what's going on with the air conditioning or watering the plants or the yard, or if my kids have the hose out for 2 hours and I don't know it. Wintertime, you know, when it's frigid cold like this, our heat's going to be on, but my husband would say, put on a sweatshirt, right? So, you know, those things are going to vary. And then you've got your wants, right? The things like vacations or the new running shoes you want to buy, or maybe it's going to buy some new furniture at the furniture mart. I mean, those are the things that you don't necessarily have to have, but perhaps that's been going into your box. So you need to determine your expenses, the fixed needs versus the variable, and then your wants. Then you're going to want to check your ratio. And again, I think about this a lot like a health plan, right? When you think about people that are trying to utilize macros or be on like a keto diet or something, they've got like this pie chart that looks a lot like this, right? You need like 50% fruits and vegetables, and then proteins, and then your fats, right? So you're going to check your ratio here too. 50% should be your needs. 50% of your paycheck should be your needs. 30% should be those wants. And then 20% should be your savings, okay? And the needs are going to include those fixed and variables. If this isn't your situation after you've picked or, you know, looked at your receipts and you're not checking this ratio, maybe it's much higher on the want side, not enough into savings, you're going to eventually see where you need to save. So remember, these are just numbers today. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but we want your ratio to start looking like this, okay? So when we think about a budget, it's not just building a budget, right? There's a lot of things that go into making sure that you are taking control of your finances. So we have to talk about credit, and we have to talk about how to smartly manage our credit along with any loans we may have, along with our debts, because that's going to go into our whole financial wellness strategy. So we have to understand credit, right? And there's three C's to understanding credit. There's characteristics, capacity, and capital. And I'm going to go through each one. All right. So characteristics, this is those personal characteristics of how appealing you may be to a creditor. We're emerging professionals, right? This is your group. I will date myself, I suppose, to some of you, but I grew up, or I should say high schoolish, watching Sex and the City. And one of my favorite episodes is where Carrie had to buy herself out of the apartment that she was getting with her ex-boyfriend, Aiden. So she goes to a lender and they're asking her all these questions. They're saying, well, what type of income do you have? Do you have any freelance income? Do you have any collateral, any investment savings? And she just can't really rattle anything off because she doesn't have any. So I think about characteristics about how valuable you would be to a lender, like how attractive are you to a lender about repaying some of those debts. So you have to think about, do I have credit? Like, have I had it in the past? Do I pay my bills on time? Do I have good credit? And then how long have I been at my job or at my address? Because those are all things that are going to make you appealing to a lender. So don't get hung up though, if you have changed jobs or if you have changed addresses. You know, you can work with that. You know, maybe it's that you've been with Nebraska Medicine for 7 years, but you were a care tech and then you became a nurse and now you're a PA. I mean, that's the same employer, right? That's not really you changing jobs. Maybe you lived in an apartment and then you built a house and then you built another house. I mean, you could probably say I lived in Omaha. I mean, it's not because you were jumping from place to place, but they can check your addresses. So you just have to be careful about that. So that first C we're looking at is characteristics. All of this too is something you can do through our financial wellness assessment that's on your Prudential Retirement Account homepage that could also help you gauge some of these questions like, do I have credit? How do I feel about paying my bills? Am I paying my bills on time? Because again, those are things that are going to make you attractive to a lender. The next thing we have to think about is capacity or the ability to repay. So this is something where you're thinking about, what is my salary? I mean, the more salary you make doesn't necessarily mean that you have the capacity to be attractive to a lender. Maybe you've got a lot of outstanding debts, and there are a lot of people that make really good salaries, just like I mentioned in that first statistic, that maybe don't have the capacity to repay. So do you have a good salary? Do you have a steady job? What type of loan payments do you already have outstanding? What are your current living expenses and your debts? And then it also kind of takes into effect, how many dependents you have. I myself have 3 children, and we do have daycare and preschool, and our kids go to St. Wenceslas. So we do have, some outstanding debts from our dependents. Maybe some of you have kids that are in college that you are paying for. Maybe you have a adult child that lives at home still. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can define dependent, but that is also going to affect your capacity to perhaps repay. So we want to make sure you understand these things so that you can get a grasp on them when you are trying to build credit or get a loan as you go throughout your financial strategy or your financial life. So the last thing with the 3 C's of credit is capital. And this is just what you could use for collateral. So like that little tale I told about Carrie Bradshaw, what did she have for collateral to make her attractive to a lender? Did she have real estate? No, she didn't. Savings, any emergency savings or any investment savings, retirement savings, any type of loans that she's already got outstanding, vehicles, homes, second properties, boats. I mean, those are things that if you were not able to repay, a lender could say, well, I could go off after that. So if any of you have ever applied for a mortgage or maybe even a car loan, they may ask you for these things. And just like a car loan, they use your car as a collateral. You don't get the title till you've paid it off. Same with, you wanting to buy a mortgage or get a mortgage. They're going to ask you for retirement plan information, statements. They may ask you, do you have the ability to take emergency withdrawals or loans from your plan if we needed to get you to repay this, if you couldn't? The answer is yes, there is a loan option on your retirement plan, but your 403B only. But I'll tell you in a couple slides why or why not it might be a good idea to take this loan if you were thinking of using it for some type of down payment on a home. All right, so different types of credit. So the three C's, we've got characteristics, capital, and then also the capacity to repay. But then we also have to talk about the types of credit. And there can be good credit and there can be bad credit, right? So there's 3 different types of credit. There's single payment credit, installment credit, and revolving credit. When I was just getting out of college, I needed to be able to establish some credit. I did have a really low credit card limit on a credit card that my stepdad gave me, and he worked his whole life in a bank. That's where I started too. So he kept that limit very low. I actually still have that credit card, so it's probably 20 some years old. Never changed the limit either. But at the same time, it's good for using like on those kind of funky internet purchases where I'm not maybe sure of who the person is on the other end asking me for my info. But I needed to establish some type of credit. So he got me that credit card and he was the co-signer. I needed to have also something that showed the ability that I could repay something. So he was trying to help me establish one of each of these, right? But I couldn't necessarily get one without the other. I couldn't get single payment credit without perhaps already having a revolving credit and an installment credit. We want to make sure you're not getting yourself into debt. You need to pay these things off, but one may not be applicable without the other. So what are these types that I'm talking about? Well, single payment credit generally is no interest or very little interest, right? So this could be like a utility company where you're paying once a month. And 15 or so years ago, I was getting maybe it was even longer than that, my first apartment in Omaha downtown, and I love living downtown. But at the time, OPPD or MUD, I can't remember, you had to have a reference for somebody because they wanted to make sure that if I couldn't repay, that they had somebody to fall back on, because I hadn't lived in Omaha before. So I actually asked a relative if they would be my reference, and I gave it to OPPD, and they were like, no, actually you can't. This person misses their payments. I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. I never knew this about this person. And it was probably something where that person, just forgot to pay 1 month or didn't have it on auto pay or something to that extent. But in any case, I found someone else who could vouch for me, and I was able to establish that single payment credit for myself for the utility company. Another thing is installment credit. So this would be something like a car payment or appliance dealers like a Nebraska Furniture Mart, where there could be a rate of interest, but it's something that you're paying month to month, where there is an end in sight. It's for a certain amount of time, certain length. Places like Nebraska Furniture Mart are enticing, Von Mar too, because a lot of times they give you like that interest only. But after a certain period of time, if you're not able to make those payments in full, then you get hit with a really big hefty interest payment. So if that's something that you utilize to kind of establish credit, make sure that the end of that interest period that's interest free, that you have some way to pay that off in full, so you don't get yourself into a bigger heap of trouble. And then the last type of credit is that revolving credit, and that would refer to credit cards with interest. It's revolving. You don't necessarily have to pay it off, and your interest rate could vary if you don't make payments. Interest rates can go up because they're variable on credit cards. So that's revolving. So you want to make sure, if you have the capacity to pay that off in full, that you do that every single month, because that will help keep your debt to income ratio down, which we'll talk about, and will give you an overall better credit score. So let's talk about understanding your credit score. What actually is your credit score and what affects it, right? So this deems your credit worthiness, and a lot of credit card companies now let you access that once a month, and it doesn't necessarily affect your credit score anymore, which it used to. So the nice thing about checking your credit score is you can kind of see where you're at, and little things can go a long way with your credit score. If you're just consistent making monthly payments, that can help you improve it. If you feel like you have something that is derogatory on your credit score or on your credit report, when you pull it, you could notify the company or the company that issued the collection or something like that. And you could ask them if they could make an arrangement or agreement to help you improve your credit score. But your credit score is, again, what deems your overall worthiness to a lender, and what does affect it, right? So if you're looking at your credit score, you're going to see this little blurb here. There we go. That shows you all of your outstanding debts. And you could contact TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian to obtain all of your outstanding debts with your credit score. But if you look at this, you're going to see an O, an R, and an I next to each status, where you can see like this past due. And the O refers to open, which is your entire balance due. The R is that revolving debt. So you can see that there, like that one is a department store. And then you can see I for the installment, which is like that auto finance. And then next to each number is a assigned about how much you're paying for your status. So you can see like this previous payment history, 3 times is 30 days late, 4 times 60 days late. So it's really good to check this to make sure you don't have some of this outstanding on your credit report, because anything above a 3 is going to impact it. So if you're 30 or 60 days late on a payment, it's not probably going to affect you unless it's repeated. But if you have something that's beyond 90 days, then that can affect your credit score. And so it's very important to periodically pull your credit report, because, back in, again, when I was in college, they would sit outside, people would sit outside of the student union, and they'd sit outside of football games and be like, I'll give you a free t-shirt if you sign up for a credit card. So some people I am still friends with, they're like, I still have that credit card, and should I close it? Well, it's good to monitor it, because what if somebody got a hold of it? Or what if you accidentally used a Pottery Barn card and then you forgot that you used it, and then it went 90 days past due? you got to correct those errors, right away, because otherwise it's really going to chunk your credit score down. If you use a Discover card, we use that. They have really good cash back. It has our credit score every single month that we get a statement. It's automatically out there. I don't have to ask for it. And it shows you how your credit score trends over time, which is really helpful because then you can see if there's maybe some places you could make adjustments. Maybe there was a month where you didn't pay off a bill in full. Maybe you missed a payment just accidentally. Maybe there was some fraud on your account. These are things that you really do need to look at when understanding your credit score to ensure that you've got the best credit score available. And I'm going to tell you why on the next slide. I am going to take a minute just to look at the chat here. Oh, people are talking about Sex in the City, like having she had a lot of pairs of shoes. That's correct. Maybe she could have used those shoes for collateral, but I suppose they didn't work for everybody. All right, perfect. All right, and then yes, somebody said too, right now it is a great time to do your spending and your budget strategy, because maybe with COVID, we're not going as many places. I know that we had a hot minute or a hot few months where we were kind of feeling like we could go places again. And then Omicron jumped in and said, wait, step back, maybe reestablish a few things here, maybe like your budget too. Maybe this is a good time to get some of that stuff back in order. But going back to credit here, there's the good credit and then there's bad credit, right? And why is this so important? Why is your credit score so incredibly important? Well, it affects your chances of getting a loan or different types of loan available. And it can also affect your loan mortgage rates and your annual percentage rates. So for instance, if you're looking at somebody with really good credit and they wanted to borrow $15,000, they would likely be able to do that. They've got those 3 C's covered. They got an interest rate for about 7%, which makes their monthly payment only $297. Total amount over time is $17,000. Person with average credit, maybe like anywhere from, well, so let's go back to like good credit. I would say that's probably like way high 600s, maybe 690 to 700. And then up into the 8s. I mean, that's good credit, right? Somebody in the 850s, they have amazing credit. You're still considered good if you're hovering around that 700 mark, okay? Anything below that, it's gonna fall into average or bad. So if you have average credit and you ask for a $15,000 loan, your interest rate may be somewhere around 12%. That's a 5% difference in somebody with good credit. That's gonna raise that payment about $40 over that time of that loan. Would amount to another like $3,000 that they spent just because their interest rate was higher. And then if you've got bad credit, if they even give you a loan in the first place, it could deem around 18%, which would be almost $100 more a month than the person with good credit, which would total amount of $22,854. So, good credit, they're able to give you longer lines of credit. You have bigger balances that you can work with, better interest rates. So if you're making payments on time and keeping your balances low, that's going to help you. Bad credit is going to come from, missing those payments, having high balances on your revolving credit, and only making minimum payments. If you're only making minimum payments on your cell phone or on your utility bills or on your credit cards, that's going to affect your credit. All right. So we want to think about that so that you can establish credit. And establishing credit, if you can have lower interest rates and lower payments, then you're going to have more money to save elsewhere, right? And spend on your wants and your emergency savings and your retirement. All right, so let's go to the next slide here and talk about how we can build a credit history. So some ways to do this: establishing a steady work record, like I mentioned, paying your bills promptly. Don't bounce your checks. Maybe you are somebody like me who still keeps a check register. I do like to write checks here and there. It just makes me feel like I'm in control, but don't bounce them. If you don't have the money in your bank account, don't spend it, right? Same with like your debit card. Make regular deposits into your checking account. Most of us have direct deposit, or if you've got an outside job where you're paying monthly. I know my nanny was really young when we had her, and she would get a tax return from us, but she, not a tax return, a W-2. We'd give her a W-2, but she, we still just paid her in cash. And so she would put those deposits in monthly, and with her W-2 from us and then her other side job, her loan lender for her car was able to say, you do need a co-signer, but we see that you're making these monthly deposits, whether it was check or cash from us, because we didn't have a way to direct deposit for her. So that helped her build her credit history. So that's important. Making your payments regular on credit cards. Maybe you're doing it once a month. Apply for a small loan. So if you're just trying to establish your credit history because you're just out of school, you might not have much of a financial track record like my old nanny did. So you have to do some of these things to build that credit, and you can't just build it by, putting money in the bank. I mean, you have to maybe show the lender you're able to repay. So apply for maybe a small loan. I mean, maybe it's just a new laptop that you need. Maybe go to the bank, ask for $1,000 loan. Maybe you need mom or dad or significant other. Sorry, Siri, mom or dad or significant other to co-sign on that loan, because then they are kind of like your Carrie Bradshaw, what she needed, somebody to be responsible if you're not able to make those payments. Okay. All right. And then another thing you want to do is make sure you're managing your credit. Borrow only what you can repay. Read and understand the credit contract. I know the terms get very, very, very small and it's hard to read, but you want to make sure that you're borrowing only what you can repay. You want to read and understand the credit contract. You want to pay those debts promptly. When that bill is due, you don't want to even be a day late. Notify the creditor to try to work something out if you can't meet the payments, and then report lost or stolen credit cards immediately. Never give your credit card number over the phone unless you initiated the call or are certain of the caller's identity. So a lot of times people will get phone calls from people asking for a credit card number. Somebody might be pretending that they're from Wells Fargo and they're not. Don't give them their card. Say, thank you. I'll call you back. If you are really telling me that I have, fraud on my account, I will call the number on the back of my card. Don't ever give the card number out unless you're sure of who the individual is. All right. So with credit, there's debt, right? So I'm just going to stop because I'm going to glance at the chat here and then we'll move into debt. Okay, a couple of people said Credit Karma is an app that monitors credit scores for free. That's awesome. So before we move into debt, let's talk about that. People get updates. Good credit, I think I kind of answered that question with a range. A difference between good and excellent credit. Yeah, I mean, anyone over the 800s is going to have really excellent credit. I don't know how much it's going to affect your ability as far as an interest rate. It might affect the amount of money that you're able to get if you're looking for maybe a longer line of credit or having more on your credit card. Maybe you're trying to up your limit because like us, we like to get the points. So anything we put on the card, we have to pay it off, of course, but at the same time, if we've only got a $5,000 credit limit, it might not be sufficient for us. So that could have the difference. And somebody said, yeah, W-2 or 1099. I actually did not 1099 my nanny because she was doing services in my home. So I had to provide her with a W-2. If she was charging me like I was doing services, she was doing services for me in her home, then I would get a 1099. I can't remember how that works exactly, but I've had to call this man at Nebraska Department of Revenue, and I'm so glad I don't have to anymore because I don't have a nanny, but it was a W-2. As far as a handout available at this presentation, I don't have a handout per se, but I believe they are recording this. The presentation is too long. We're not able to share that, but I might be able to get you some notes pages, and I can try to do that if somebody wants to hold me accountable and send me a reminder after the meeting. All right, so let's keep going since we are not quite up on time, but getting closer. We want to leave some time for some questions, and I still have some meat to cover here. So let's talk about debt. So with credit, there's debt, and not necessarily all debt is bad. So if you want, in the chat, you can answer this question. Does everybody think that all debt is bad, or do you think there's a possibility to have some good debt? And obviously it's probably going to depend on the debt, right? And you could give some examples of what good debt could bad debt be compared to bad debt. Yeah, so mortgage, yes, absolutely, that's a good debt. Yes, not all debt is bad. Some debt is good. It helps you establish that credit history. Absolutely. All right, sorry, again, I'm telling you, I don't know how to work Zoom. All right, so debt, the good kind. You guys were spot on with the mortgage, right? Mortgages are great. That's your dwelling, right? That's where you're living. That can help you establish great credit. Make sure your payment is going on auto payment, or you're sending in your check, or you're using bill pay. This is a great kind of debt. College loans, that's where you are, fulfilling your education. That's a great kind of debt, right? I mean, at the end, of course, you're going to have these student loan payments. Not everybody, but for the most part, you're going to have student loans. And I think the average is about $58,000 in student loan debt, but that's your education. That's giving you the ability to further enhance your career and your mind, right? So that's good kind of debt. A car loan can also be considered good debt, right? Now, I wouldn't say that going out to buy the Porsche convertible that you always wanted when you can't pay your other bills is a good type of debt when you've already got a reliable car without a car payment. I mean, that might not be the best kind of debt, but a car loan where it's giving you the ability to have a reliable vehicle to get to and from work, or take the kids to and from practice, or to and from school. I mean, those are the good kinds of debt, right? The not so good kind is going to be the credit card debt. And the average household credit card debt in 2021 was $7,027. This isn't what I'm talking about, where maybe you're putting all your bills on a credit card and you're paying off. This is that revolving credit. And so that results in an average interest of $1,155. That's not so good kind of debt. So you want to know your debt to income ratio. This is going to help you be, again, reputable to lenders. And in fact, if you have more than 43% of your debt to income ratio, you're not going to be ideal to like a mortgage lender, and you probably wouldn't even be able to get a loan. So you want to add up your debt to income ratio, and the lower it is, the better. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add all your monthly debts, and then you're going to divide them by your income before taxes. And then that should give you your debt to income ratio. And remember, you want to keep it below 43%. In all honesty, this number has gone up and I can't even believe it. Back when I was a banker in like the 2000s, I think you couldn't have 35% was the ideal debt to income ratio. So it's gone up, but if you can keep it lower, I mean, the lower, the better. So how can you improve your debt to income ratio? Well, you can take on more work, right? You could get a second job. Maybe you get more money by charging for things you might otherwise do for free. Maybe you were really kind and you were mowing for the neighbor or shoveling snow for the neighbor. Well, maybe now you say, I'm going to have to start charging just a little bit. Maybe if you do side jobs, you up your prices. Maybe you get a second side gig. Maybe you've got two of the market jobs that you're doing where it's, I know some people call them like a pyramid scheme, but maybe it's something where you're trying to, sell something door to door or something like that. Maybe you have a little business that you could put on Etsy and you could earn money like that. I know there's like the Poshmark app, we'll use Carrie Bradshaw on her shoes. Maybe she should have gone on Poshmark and sold all her shoes. But that's a way for you to get some extra money. I know myself, I've been getting rid of toys and clothes like no other. And I've just been going through the kids' stuff. And when they're not home, I put them in like buckets and bags, and I put it on Facebook Marketplace, like $10 for this bag of fun or $10 for this car track. And if my kids catch me, I say, oh, we're just sending it to be fixed, because chances are they're going to forget about it. But it's a great way to, get some extra cash. So sell things you don't need. So that's some ways you can improve your debt to income ratio, because then you're proving that you've got more money or more income coming in. You could also find more money by avoiding fees when possible. Again, those interest rates, they can add up. Canceling unused memberships. I mean, I myself am guilty for getting Paramount on the YouTube TV for a week because they were playing Clifford the Big Red Dog and my kids were bored, so I needed something to do. Well, don't forget to cancel that stuff, because then you're going to get charged. Amazon Kindle memberships, Hulu, Netflix, all those things that maybe you aren't using, make sure you're canceling them if you're not using them. I had this old People magazine subscription that I had no idea I had. I was thinking I was really lucky because it kept popping up on my Amazon Fire and I could read People magazine and I loved it. Well, it turns out it was going on my Amazon. It was only like $2, but I didn't really need that. If I'm really that interested, I'll just Google the celebrity I'm curious about, right? So those are some unused memberships I don't need. And then call companies you do business with to maybe see if you can move into a different program. So that could help improve that. There's also a tool out on the Prudential site that helps you manage your daily expenses. And there's another one that helps you track maybe those expenses that you're not utilizing. So for instance, during when COVID first happened, we weren't able to get haircuts, right? So we just started cutting my son's hair at home. And so what I ended up doing is saying, okay, every month we were spending $20 at family fun cuts, which was no fun at all because he would scream all the time. And I took that $20 and I said, well, what if I invested it instead? And over 15 years, it ended up giving me like an extra $4,000 in his savings account. And that's what this calculator is designed to do. So instead, I just increased his 529 plan by $20 a month. And then I did it for the other kids too. But you can see how that strategy maybe helps you save money. Now, someday he's probably going to want to get a real haircut. He's not going to want dad to do it. My daughter won't want mom to do it anymore. But those are just some ways you can save, temporarily as well. All right, so some tough choices sometimes people do have to consider is maybe paying the fixed expenses before variable, maybe calling a creditor to make short-term arrangements or negotiating new due dates. We do have a company that we partner with called GreenPath, where if you need some credit counseling, that's a free service to Nebraska Medicine employees through GreenPath. So let me know if you need the information on that. There's no fee to have the initial consultation with GreenPath. But if you're wanting like a full-blown debt strategy consolidation, then there is an additional charge for that, and it's a percentage. All right, so if you have too much debt, this could be, if you want to know why you have too much debt or thinking, how could I know? Well, maybe it's you're paying only the minimum on your credit cards, you're getting late payment penalties, maybe your credit cards are at or near their peak. Maybe every month you have to pull from savings to pay bills. Maybe you're using your credit card because you don't have any cash, or maybe you've tried to apply for something and you were denied credit. Those are some hints that maybe you've got too much debt. So to tackle that debt, maybe make a list of the institutions you owe and your balances and your interest rates, and then the minimum payments due. I feel like I am this nerd wallet. I keep a Post-it in my planner and I map out all my bills every month that I have. And in my planner, it says, okay, I owe this much to our Discover card or Citibank, or I owe this much to the school, just so I can keep track and I don't lose track. Or if I use like the Pottery Barn credit card one month, I write it down on my Post-it so I don't lose track, so I don't miss those payments. Some people might be much more savvy than me, and maybe you put it in your phone or you put it in an Excel spreadsheet. I just like my Post-it. I just really like Post-its. But that could help you tackle your debt and stay on track. Some ways to get rid of debt, you could use the high-low method. This gives you the benefit of paying the least amount of interest over time. So you start with the account that has the highest interest and you just keep paying that as much as possible, and then just do the minimums on the other until you get to the next one, and so on and so forth. Another strategy is using the snowball method, where you attack your debts from smallest to largest. So maybe you've got your Von Maur card that's got $300. You start tackling that first, and then you keep paying the minimum payments on every one. Then you move to your Nebraska Furniture Mart, and then you move to your Citibank, and then you move to your Discover, and then you move to your car loan, and then you move to your mortgage, right? So those are some ways to attack it with the snowball method. Another is just full-blown consolidation. When you consolidate your debt, then you just have one single bill to worry about. Maybe it's something where you've got your home mortgage and you apply for a line of credit or home equity loan to consolidate some of that debt. And that way, instead of paying 200 here, 300 here, 400 there, you've got one monthly payment all lumped into the one, and then your house becomes the collateral, like we talked about, right, with the capacity to repay. But that's another method that you can utilize. So some debt defying tips: keep your number of credit cards to a minimum so you can keep track. pay more than the minimum, make an extra payment against the mortgage annually. This is something I find from a lot of people who are maybe getting bonuses, or they are selling back PTO. Maybe once a year, they make an extra payment against the mortgage because that goes towards the principal. Consolidating loans is also great. And then just as I mentioned before, don't withdraw from your retirement accounts. So quickly, I know we're running out of time, but I do have a couple more things I want to cover. A word about loans. I told you that your plan at Nebraska Medicine does allow you to draw from it. But at the same time, if you take money out of your retirement plan, you may be losing out on that compounding interest, and you may be taking more out than you need. And then what if you leave the workforce and you go work someplace else and you don't pay the loan back? You could have an early distribution with withdrawal penalties. So if it's absolutely necessary, there's a reason why they have that in place. Call me, email me, we'll talk through it. But I just want to show you this illustration here of somebody that takes a loan and the long-term effects of borrowing. So if you're doing annual contributions, $1,500 annually, at your fourth year, you'd have about $6,900. Say you decide to take out a $3,500 loan. Doesn't seem like it's that much, right? So annually, you're still putting in the $1,500, but $793 annually is going back to that loan. So after the repayment period, what's going to happen is you're going to wind up with less money. So with a loan, this individual has $110,000 roughly. But if they would have not taken that loan after 5 years, they would have had $15,000 more after that 10-year payoff. So is it really worth the $15,000 to take the $3,500? If it's an emergency, maybe. If you've got other options, then I would try to go that route. So remember, there's light at the end of the tunnel with your financial wellness. You can establish an emergency fund, use different protection solutions, look at the big ticket items that you might need, focus on retirement, and then obviously care for your family. So let's talk about some savings versus long-term versus short-term saving strategies. Your long-term, you need to be liquid. That's maybe like 1 or 2 years. I'm sorry, that's your short-term. And then long-term, you're going to focus on your growth, right? So short-term would be maybe looking at buying a car, paying for a wedding, establishing emergency savings. Long-term is going to be more like obtaining a mortgage, planning for retirement, those types of things. So short-term goals, vacation, wedding, remodeling. Some vehicles for short-term savings, you could use a savings account where you've got very little interest that you receive, but it's liquid. A money market fund maybe has a little bit higher interest, but it's attached to bonds, so there could be a little bit of risk involved. And then there's a CD, which can maybe give you a little bit higher rate of return, but it's attached usually to like a 1, 6, or 1 year strategy where it might not be liquid. And if you withdraw prior to that time frame, then you may penalize yourself. So bank accounts, the pros to savings with those is it's easier access. The con is limited earning potential and inflation risk. Money markets, you have limited market exposure, less potential for growth, and it could possibly not keep up with inflation. And then like I talked about those CDs, there might be limited access to the funds and then inflation risks. So if you're thinking about short-term, a bank, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you look at a bank versus an investment account, if you're trying to think short-term versus long-term, if you've got a $10,000 investment and you put and you're investing over time at a 1% rate of return after 20 years, that's only going to give you about $12,000. So that 10,000 only grew like $2,000 over 20 years. That's not much, right? So some other ways you can look and to save for long-term goals. These again are going to be purchasing your home, saving for college, retirement, long-term savings, using bonds, stocks, mutual funds. Your bonds are the stable funds that don't really fluctuate. Your stocks are going to be those individual funds that go up and down based on stock market volatility. And yesterday, the stock market did have a very volatile day, but it ended on a high note. And then you've got your mutual funds, which is what you all can invest in at Nebraska Medicine, where it's more than one company that gets together to create one mutual fund, so that you have the ability to invest in something that's more long-term. It's not just stocks. So those are long-term savings. And the upside to that is that you have more potential for growth. So with your stocks, the gains on the sale are generally taxed at a lower federal rate, but the cons are there's market risk. Bonds, as I mentioned, they can choose options that fit your years to retirement and risk tolerance, but there's also interest rate risk because there is an inverse relationship between bonds and interest rates. If bond prices go up, interest rates can go down and vice versa. And then here's your mutual funds. You can have diversification, and any gains on sale are generally taxed at a lower federal rate, but you can have investment risk as well. But if we're looking at long-term versus short-term or savings account versus investments, the potential growth of 10,000 on principal is much better. So if you have your $10,000 investment over 20 years, even though you see your account dip and go up and down unlike the savings account, you could potentially wind up with $33,000 as opposed to that 12,000. So the earnings potential is 23,000 compared to 2. So it's a much better strategy, but we also want to make sure you do what's right for you. You can save by doing individual IRAs. The advantages to those are the earnings are tax deferred. The contributions could be tax deductible. And then there's a wide range of investment options. The con to an IRA is it's got lower contribution rates than your employer plan. Income limits, may or may not be deductible. A Roth IRA is helpful because your retirement income may be tax-free based on IRS qualifications. You have low contribution limits though, and then there could be penalties if you take the funds out early. So with you all at Nebraska Medicine, if you're not taking advantage of your 403B retirement plan, it's definitely an advantage because the earnings are tax-free. Some contributions can be pre-tax. You can also do Roth, which would mean you don't have to pay income taxes on that money in retirement. You can consolidate other accounts in. There's higher contribution limits than IRAs, and then you've got educational tools and support. One of the downsides is you may have fewer investment options than IRAs because it's through your employer-sponsored plan. All right, so 4 key options for savings. You can use bank accounts, investment accounts, or pay taxes later on retirement plans such as your 403B, which you all have access to here at Nebraska Medicine, or IRAs. If you haven't started with an emergency savings, I definitely would suggest that you do that. Unfortunately, that's nothing that you can do through your employer plan, but some reasons we need to have one. What happens if you don't is you could end up using your credit cards. You could default and take a loan out of your retirement plan to pay for that emergency, or you could borrow money from friends and family, and you never want to mix that, sometimes they say. So make sure you establish that emergency fund. So what are some next steps? Well, if you haven't enrolled, you want to make sure you join your plan today. Review your plan information. You can enroll on any device, your cell phone, your laptop, your iPad. You can enroll on anything. You can go to the Prudential app. You can go to the web. You can text join. You could scan that little barcode if you wanted to, or you can email me and I'll help you with a one-on-one. When you're doing the enrollment on your smartphone, so if you haven't downloaded it yet, you want to download the Prudential app, you can, and it might ask you for some numbers to get enrolled. You click on enrollment. You would need the plan number, which is 900130, and then the subplan, which is 5 zeros and a 1. Or you can just go out to the Prudential Retirement website, and that will give you the ability to enroll that way. It's really easy. You can click on Get Help, where it will help you by just giving you an amount to contribute that's most like your peers or somebody in your same age range, pay range. Or you can click on Do It Myself, and then you're more in charge of picking the investment strategy and choosing the percentage that you want to contribute. You can utilize our MyRock for retirement. So I know we kind of focused on budget and getting your financial house in order from a credit, debt, and loan standpoint. But the reason we're talking about this is so that you know that there's these tools at your fingertips. If you're thinking long-term, because you've established your budget, you could utilize our MyRock for retirement planner. It's new and enhanced so that you can see if you're on track for retirement. And then you can see your progress, which is a neat tool that we've got available. I mentioned we've got that plan a budget tool. So if you've already tried Mint and you've already tried Every Dollar and you want something online where you can link your outside accounts into Prudential, you can plan a budget and then it helps you keep track. If you want just a paper budget form, email me, I'll get that to you. Registering online gives you the ability to track your account balances and performance. I'm happy to help you with anything you have questions on, but there's one of me and lots of you. So anything you can do online, checking balances, percentage rates, do it. And then you get a better overall grasp of your finances. Update your beneficiaries, perform contribution rate changes. You can get everything sent to you electronically, or you can go out to the Prudential website at any time. For those of you still like paper, yes, we can studio paper statements. You just have to elect to do so. The My Accounts homepage gives you a consolidated view of all of your Prudential accounts, so you can see everything in one spot. There's tools to stay connected and informed. You can call our service center. You can contact our rollover in team if you've got some funds you want to consolidate in. We've got the mobile app and then Amazon Alexa too. So I know we don't have much time left, but I want to take a few minutes for questions. If anybody has any that they want to place in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, feel free. I'd be happy to stay on, 10 minutes longer. I know you guys have things to do too. You've got busy work going on these days, but I'm happy to stay on. And then I will send a survey to all of you after the presentation in a couple of days. And I'll get that email from one of you that has a list of all the names. If one of you on either Jenny or Jerry or Kaylee can give that to me, and then I can get you that link, and then you'll have my contact information as well. And then feel free to ask any personal questions that you might have in regards to finances, right? I'm a retirement counselor, but I'm not very good at counseling other things these days. But at the same time, I want to thank you all for having me. And if any of you in your individual departments want me to chat about anything in particular, or you want to have me back to talk about something else, or I know tomorrow I'm meeting with Critical Care just to review the basics of the retirement plan during their evening Zoom huddle, please feel free to invite me. That's what I'm here to do. This virtual world is hard to navigate sometimes, but it gives us the ability to meet a lot more people in a smaller amount of time. So we're going to try to take advantage of that. So again, I thank you and I appreciate your time, and congrats on learning a little bit more about your financial future.
Tiffany, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And thank you all that joined us. As she mentioned, she'll stay on for a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, just want to update you guys. We do have an event coming up on February 9th that we will be sending out a calendar invite for. It's about energy management. So we hope you guys will be able to join us for that, and have a great day.